Year 10s, let's just have a discussion about slope. You would have done slope before in Year 9, and you probably remember that to calculate the slope, what we do is we calculate the rise over the run. So if we talked about that in terms of this line, the rise would be how much it goes up and how much it goes across. So if I pick a point on this line, say I pick the point, I'm going to do a bit of a nicer line. Alrighty, so I'm going to pick 2 points. I'm going to pick the point here, and I'm going to pick this point here. And then I've got to work out the slope, and to work that out, I've got to work out how much I've gone up for how much I've gone across. So if we're working out how much I go up, or the rise, well, I've gone up 1, 2, 3. And hopefully you can see that there I've gone 1 to there, 2 to there, 3 to there. So my rise is going to be 3. Now my run is how much I go across. So that's going to be 1, 2, 3 again. So this happens to be 3 over 3, which is equal to 1. And that's probably how you've calculated slope previously. But we can actually calculate the slope a little bit more mathematically than that. If we have a look at this graph down here, we could do slope in the exact same way. So go slope equals rise over run. So that's going to equal how much we go up. So we're going from 0, so y is 0 down here. And that's what this point is telling us. Remember, if we've got 3, 0, that's saying x is 3 and y is 0. So I'm going from y being 0 to y being 3. So therefore I'm going up 3. That's my rise. And I'm going from over here, x being 0, which is what we see here, x is equal to 0, across to x being 3. So again, 3 over 3. In this case, though, of course, if we started at this point, we'd actually have to go down. So that means that it's going to be a negative. So that gives us a slope of -1. But how could we calculate that a little bit more mathematically rather than calculating it just by going, well, how much do I go up, how much do I go across? If you're going up, then you're going to be positive. If you're going down, you're going to be negative. If you're going across that way, you're going to be positive, and if you're going across that way, you're going to be negative. Instead of doing it as rise over run, we can use the formula which says that our slope is equal to the change in y over the change in x. Now that makes sense because we said slope is equal to the rise, and the rise is always in the y-axis, so that's the change in y, and that little triangle means change in. So that's going to be equal to the rise, and the change in x, well, that's going to be in horizontal direction because x is the horizontal axis, so that's going to be your run. So instead of going rise over run, we can actually say it's change in x over change in y. And if you're ever actually trying to find a change in something, you do the final value minus the initial value or the first value. So what we can say is we do y2 take y1, the first value, the second value or the final value of y, minus the initial value of y. And then we've got x2 take x1. So we're doing the final value of x minus the initial value of x. If we looked at a diagram of that, so let's draw our axes and just draw a line. Now instead of actually putting these points as specific numbers, I'm going to call these points x2, y2, and x1, y1. So all this x2 means is it's the x coordinate of this point, and it's just a general way of describing it. Y2 means the y coordinate of this point, but again a general way of describing it. So we can see there that if we wanted to find the rise between this point and that point, we could just do y2, whatever that is, and it could be lots of different numbers, take y1. Similarly, if we want to work out the change this way, we could do x2 minus x1. So if we did an example of that now, if we want to find the slope of, and say we did -2, 3, and 5, 6. Okay. What's going to be really helpful is if we actually label one of the points as x1, y1, and one of the points as x2, y2. And I would say that for all of the questions you get for slope, to do this, because that's going to make it really simple so that you don't make a mistake. So I'm going to call that point x1, y1, and that point x2, y2. Doesn't matter which one, as long as I put the x1 with the y1 and the x2 with the y2. Then I'm going to write my formula for slope. So I'm going to write slope equals y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. And then I'm going to substitute in those points. So y2 is 6. I'm going to substitute in 6. y1 is 3. I'm going to substitute in 3. x2 is 5. I'm going to substitute in 5 on the bottom. And x1 is -2. So I'm going to substitute -2. Be careful with your negatives. See how here I had to do x2, then put the minus sign and the minus sign, and then put x1 and x1. So I ended up getting 5 minus 2. And you should remember that a minus equals a plus, so that's going to be 5 plus 2, which is going to equal 3 over 7. So that's how we find the slope.